Okay. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Nut Allergy Podcast, where we explore real stories and experiences from people with or living around nut allergies. My name is Mick, founder of Mick's Got No Nuts, a dedicated peanut-free and tree nut-free protein bar made in a peanut-free and tree nut-free facility. Today, I am welcomed by Curt. Curt, thank you so much for joining us. Do you mind introducing yourself a little bit? Where are you from?
Well, thanks for having me, Mick. I'm from Coon Rapids, Minnesota. It's a northern suburb of Minneapolis.
Copy that. And I myself have never been in Minnesota, so I'm not super familiar with Minnesotan geography, but I'll take your
Um,
word for it.
it's a
Um,
beautiful place.
yeah, I bet it gets really cold in the winter though. I'm a West Coast
It
kind of
does.
guy, and snow scares me.
Okay.
Um, so we are on a show about nut allergies. So can you tell me you have the nut allergy, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
All right. Do you mind telling me, is it peanut, tree nut? What are we allergic to here?
Peanut and then tree nuts, excluding almonds and coconut, which coconut's technically, I guess, not a tree nut anymore. But
Yeah, they changed that kind of recently, didn't they?
yeah.
So just almonds, huh? What's funny, that's one of my worst ones. So tell me a little bit about the story of how you discovered your peanut and tree nut sans almond allergy.
Yeah. So 3 years old, my mom, finger full of peanut butter, turned blue, no clue what was happening. Of course, scared, ran to the hospital, and
Yeah.
the rest is history, unfortunately.
So was that the first time your mom had ever given you peanut butter?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
First
really?
time. She accounts it to the fact that when she was pregnant with me, she craved peanut butter parfaits at Dairy Queen. And she ate so many that there's theories from the allergist that it gave me a nut allergy, but whether or not that's true, who knows?
Oh, that's kind of funny. What was that your first, was that your mom's first ever run-in with some sort of peanut allergy or tree nut
Yes.
allergy?
Yep. No, yeah, nobody else in my family. And this is 1987, so there wasn't a whole lot even known at that time about the nut
Yeah.
allergies.
And do you have siblings by chance?
I do. I got older brother, well, a younger
Okay.
brother, and a younger sister, and
Okay.
no other allergies in the family.
Okay, so you were the odd one out of the sibling
Yeah,
bunch. So does
I
that
drew the
mean
short straw.
yeah, is so you had that reaction to peanut butter, and then when you got tested, I assume they also tested for tree nuts as well?
Yeah, and back then there was that we knew of, at least there was no blood test, so it was the prick on the back
Yeah.
and give you the allergen, and it just blew up everywhere. So
Have you noticed across the span of your life your nut allergy has gotten better or worse, would you say?
the numbers go down slightly. Um, so I've always been before. I'd say it was 2010 is when I found out that the almond was gone away.
Oh,
Before that, I was up on the scale of the almonds.
really?
Um, yeah. So I've always been told by my allergist that the tree nut allergies you can outgrow, but
Mm.
the peanut one you'll never outgrow.
Oh,
Whether or
really?
not that's true, again, I mean, there's studies that say different, but everything has come down, and by some of them by like 0.01. It's not a lot, but
Hmm.
I
But
still don't mess around with them.
that is interesting. I've never heard that peanuts have a less likelihood of what regression than tree nuts. Tree nuts are more likely to grow out of it or develop immunity.
Um,
Supposedly,
According to
supposedly.
my allergist. So right, right. Guy down the street might say something different.
Yeah, yeah. So when you were younger and you were growing up as a kid, how was your family receptive to your nut allergy? Were your siblings and parents very conscious of it? How was that kind of dynamic growing up with that?
Yeah, so they definitely were. Um, we did not have peanut butter in the house.
Okay.
My brothers and sisters had candy that might contain or did contain peanut butter.
Hmm.
Um, I don't recall them eating it when I was around much. Later in my like teenage years and stuff, they didn't eat it at all because for whatever reason, I got more anxious about it as I got
Hmm.
older. So then it
Hmm.
kind of just knocked it off basically. But
Okay.
everybody was great about it, and
Okay.
including um, outside the house too, aunts, uncles, and stuff. They were all
Okay.
super worried when I come over. What
Oh,
can
really?
and
Okay,
can't you
good.
eat? And so that very fortunate for that.
That's good. I'm sure you know that some people with these allergies, their family members just don't understand, or like their close friends, they give them, say, a tray of cookies, and here's one side of the cookies that's nut free, and then literally like right next, it was nuts. I'm like, I can't have that. You should know that
Yeah.
that's too much of a risk. What is the level of severity for your nut allergy?
As far
So, for
as
example, can you have a snack that has a may contain label, for example?
I don't know.
But why
I
risk
don't
it?
I don't do the may contain
Okay.
stuff because to me there's no cookie, candy, whatever that's worth what could happen,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So if I can find a way around it, I do, and if I can't, then I just don't eat it.
Okay. And then what about, so for me, for context, someone can eat a peanut butter sandwich literally right next to me. I'm throwing my dad
Mhm.
under the bus, but he'll jokingly, when we go to the movie theater, he'll order Reese's Pieces and jokingly offer me one. Um,
No,
but
sure.
he'll eat it right in front of me, and I have no problem. It's only when I obviously consume it. Is that the same for you? Can you be very close to that, or do you have an issue?
So I think the issue is anxiety,
Mm,
because I have through work had people come around me where they forgot, they didn't know, and I start to feel something and I clear
mm,
myself in the area and then I'm
mm.
okay. So I'm thinking it's more anxiety than it is an actual allergy thing. And that's something I've been working on,
Yeah.
but if I can get away, I do. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I live.
So you had your first reaction when you were 3. Have you had reactions since then?
Once when I was 10, I believe it was 8, 9 or 10.
Okay.
Um, and that was an incident. My family has a cabin up in Ontario, Canada,
Oh,
and
really?
it's
Okay.
remote.
That's
It's a
cool.
boat-in type situation. And my uncle was with us, and he cooked the French fries with peanut oil.
Oh.
And I started instantly just not feeling well, vomit. My dad's scared because my mom's one who always like did all the taking care of us, and my dad was more of the tough guy, like outdoor stuff, and he didn't know what to do. He panicked, and I'm
Mm,
throwing up outside, and it was very bad. We left the next morning as soon as we could,
mm.
um, and I was in and out of the hospital for the next week with
Oh,
flare-up reactions from that. It was
no
pretty
kidding.
pretty scary. Yeah.
And that was when you were 10, you said?
Yeah, and knock on wood,
Not,
nothing
not
since. So
knock on wood. And nothing's happened since. Do you have to
no,
carry an EpiPen around all the time?
always two. Yeah,
Always.
I do the AVQs. So
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the medicinal treatments that you carry around that's in the house. I've heard mixed things surprisingly on Benadryl. This is new to me. Have you heard
correct.
this before?
I have. So I grew up Benadryl. So you have a what might be a reaction. My mom would immediately give you Benadryl, and then
Yeah.
it would clear up. You know. Now they're saying that masks the allergic reaction.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
So I do have Benadryl in my bag with me at all times, and then I have my two ABQs. So
Hmm.
that's what my treatment would be.
Yeah. And then I've heard Zyrtec as well.
Yeah.
Do you use
Um,
Zyrtec?
I do not carry Zyrtec. Um,
Okay.
my wife is a pharmacist, and
Oh, there you
she's
go.
heard that as well. So I mean,
Okay.
there is some studies behind that Zyrtec use as well as helpful.
Can I ask why you carry 2 EpiPens? I've never heard that before.
Really? Okay. So they say to take two because you inject one,
Hmm.
wait 15 minutes. Hopefully, the symptoms improve. And if they do not improve, you inject another one while you're waiting for help or trying to get to the hospital. If
Oh.
if the symptoms get worse, and then they say not to do more than two. because you could risk for a heart attack, and your blood pressure actually drops, but your heart rate goes through the roof. So
Interesting. I got to admit, I mean, I've only been doing this for what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 podcasts now, but you're the first person I've heard at least tell me that they carry 2 EpiPens. It's very interesting. Um,
so
then again, knock on wood, you've never had to use it, it sounds like.
no,
And neither have I, knock on wood. It looks and
right.
sounds horrible. I'm gonna pray I never have to use it.
Yep.
So you in your life, are you the only person in your kind of bubble of friends and family with this nut allergy?
I have one friend with a tree nut allergy,
Okay.
but peanut wise, yeah, I'm the one.
Okay, so I'm guessing you and the buddy with the tree nut allergy, best friends, right?
Yeah,
You
right.
gotta you
No
gotta
worries
navigate
there.
life together. Yeah.
Right.
Do you share any like advice or food recommendations, or do you share any information with each other because you guys are the only people with shared allergies like that?
Yeah, it seems that with the tree nut allergy, they're not, you talk about the airborne allergy for peanuts, and some people say that there's no such thing, and you have other people that, swear by it. It seems like the people who are allergic to tree nuts don't have the airborne issue as much.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we share, you know, foods we find, and we find something new on the line, and you just, hey, check this out, and
Yeah.
so
How do
definitely.
you how do you handle eating out? How do you eat at a restaurant, for example?
So usually I call ahead and I'll
Okay.
verify what oils they're using. And then, I'll check out the menu. And if there's a lot of peanut dishes, that type of stuff, I avoid like the Asian restaurants, just they're
Hmm.
usually a nightmare.
Yeah.
But there's always something on the menu that's generally safe, even if it's a salad, I'm fine with that. Or
Hmm.
if not, I'll just go with everybody and just not eat. And I'm fine doing that as well.
Really. I did an episode with a lady named Ellen who is so sensitive to nuts that she will not eat out, with an exception of maybe
Sure.
2 or 3 restaurants. And it sounds like you're
Hmm.
you're more willing to kind of go with the flow if people are with you and just
Correct.
navigate for yourself. Um,
Yep.
have you had any issues with asking a restaurant about their nut, tree nut, I don't know, exposure in the kitchen, or or no?
No, I mean everybody seems to be pretty
Okay.
straightforward with you. And that most people understand it's a serious thing. And I
Yeah.
think as years go on now, with more and more people becoming allergic to nuts, that more and
Yeah.
more restaurants and businesses are getting more serious
Yeah.
about it. A lot of training, and luckily here in the Minneapolis metro area, there's quite a few different restaurants and even
Hmm.
bakeries that are nut free and advertised to be nut free. So
Oh, really?
you don't see that a lot.
No, that's awesome. Make a note if
Yeah.
anyone, if who's watching this, Minneapolis is a safe haven for nut
Vacation
allergy.
up here. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's super interesting. So when you go out with people and say they don't know about your allergy, do you typically
Mhm.
bring it up? And the reason why I'm kind of asking is because I've noticed that people, especially those who are newer with nut allergies, can be kind of
Mhm.
embarrassed to tell people. Do you kind of feel that way as well?
If it's somebody I haven't met before, it's a little more, like intimidating, I guess. It shouldn't be, right? Um, with my employment, what I do for a living, we
Mm.
get quite a few new people in and out. So I'm used to saying, hey, this is what the situation. I have a nut allergy,
Mm-hmm.
and my employer is so awesome that we actually have a signpost at the front door that somebody within the building has a nut allergy.
Oh,
Please don't bring it in.
oh, really?
And that wasn't even my doing. That was on them. So I'm very grateful for that. And all but exception of one or two over the last 15 years, most are just like, absolutely, I'll do whatever I need to do because we don't want to kill
Yeah.
someone. So
Yeah. Hey, it sounds like your boss is a rock star. Do your
yeah.
work colleagues know it's you, or they're just scouting out every day? Like, who is the guy with the nut allergy?
Luckily there's only 12 of us, so
Okay. So they might
so
have figured it
everybody
out by
knows.
now.
And
Yeah. It's
Yeah, they
Curt.
all know, and they're cool. Hey, is this okay to have, and whatnot. And
Yeah.
as far as like May contains and that shared equipment, that they eat there all the time. I don't.
Yeah.
That's nothing to me. But
Yeah.
nobody's sitting there eating nuts. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Do you now? I told the last interview I had where like 7 years ago I was going on a school trip, and
Mm.
one of the sponsors of the trip was able to get me pre-boarding access just for having a nut allergy. And so I never had that before, or have I really asked since, but that was pretty cool back in the day that I could get on a plane first. Do you ever kind of try to
Yep.
use your nut allergy to get, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Tell me about that.
Every time we fly.
Do
Yep.
you really?
So yeah. So luckily here in Minneapolis we have Delta based here,
Okay.
and I've flown hundreds of times, and they're normal every time. Let you pre-board, wipe it
Yeah.
down. I've heard stories of people getting denied that or told no, you can't do
Yeah.
that, or I'm not going to make an announcement. I don't know their situations, but I find that the more tactful you are about it and not in their face about it, you just explain it to them nicely, and they're more than willing to accommodate.
Hmm.
So, and it is really nice, to get on there, wipe your
Yeah.
seat down. Am I completely would I fly if I couldn't? No, I'm still fine getting on an airplane,
Hmm.
not doing it. But it is a
Yeah.
nice perk.
Yeah. Do you have to ask the counter every time you send?
Yeah. So, when I book the flight, then I'll call the reservation office and let them know, and they actually mark it on your ticket, and
Mm,
on your the thing what they look at on the computer. So
mm.
then they always tell you to go up to the counter, let them know. So I do that as well. And then they usually let the flight attendants know, but I still let the flight attendants know again. Third. So I have a
That's
lot of
yeah.
friends. I'm in the aviation industry, so I have a lot of friends who are airline pilots.
Okay.
So they do care. The pilots, nobody wants to land an airplane halfway between here and Florida for a medical
Yeah.
emergency.
Yeah. I should have asked earlier, what do you do if you don't mind me asking
Yeah, I'm an air traffic controller for the
for
FAA.
work? Oh,
Yep.
are you? That's super cool.
Yep.
That's awesome. Hence all the aviation knowledge. Yeah, that's super
Yeah.
cool. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna have to personally start using the nut allergy card, especially just to make sure I get my suitcase in the overhead. Might as well,
Right.
right? So
Sure.
you've told me that Minneapolis is pretty up to date and aware.
Mhm.
Obviously, aviation is becoming more aware. When do you think that kind of change happened, where people really started being more aware of nut allergies? Because you said when you had your first reaction as a kid, it wasn't super
Mhm.
knowledgeable, but now it kind of is.
I would have to say it's the internet, social media,
Hmm.
better testing. People are
Hmm.
getting tested for the allergies, and um, EpiPens. I don't know when I got my first EpiPen, but um, I don't know if they were around when I first found out about the allergy.
Hmm.
So I think it's just a combination of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you found me on Facebook, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And I assume that uh, one of my many outreach methods has been finding these nut allergy support groups, which personally I didn't really know about until I started this. Are you active
Sure.
in those groups at all, or at least pay attention to
Yeah.
them?
No, I do. I follow all the no nut or the NNMG. I think it's no nut mom groups, whatever those are. The peanut
Okay.
tree nut safe foods,
Hmm.
all of those. Um, there's a lot of helpful information on there. And, there's also some people that aren't as knowledgeable on those groups. You got to be careful of too, and they spread misinformation, I guess, and it can be
Hmm.
scary on there because some people read it and then all of a sudden they stop eating something they've eaten for so long and never had an issue with it
Yeah.
because someone misunderstood what someone else said. So,
Yeah.
but the groups are very helpful, but you just got to pick and choose on there what you know I trust
Yeah.
but verify when it comes to those groups.
Hmm. 100%. And I know we were talking about this before we hopped on here that a lot of the people who follow me on Facebook or have signed up for my email list so far are parents, are especially moms, right? You just told me the
Yes.
moms nut allergy group. I knew it was a high number, but I did not expect it to be as high as it was. That
Right.
was very surprising. That was very surprising to me.
And that's one of my frustrations, I guess, as far as those groups go too, is because there will be I'll call on, let's say, a certain candy, and I'm told by the company, don't eat, we do our cleaning, we do it very well, but if you're very sensitive, I would just avoid our product completely, which I'm thankful for, that they're that honest with you.
Mm,
But then you'll see a parent in one of those groups saying, "Oh, I feed my kid that all the time."
mm,
And to me, that gets to be frustrating because the parent, not having the allergy, you don't always understand it, or it's maybe not as scary for you. I don't mean to say that the parents aren't nervous about it, but um, the fact that they're not the one that could die from it, you know, it's just a candy bar. Who cares? Well, that's kind of scary sometimes. So,
mm-hmm. And it really and I can understand from a parent with a very young kid. I don't have kids. Do you have kids, Curt?
and I don't have kids either, so
Yeah.
I don't know where they're coming from a lot of the times either.
Yeah. And I interviewed Sam, a mom with a 3-year-old son, and
Mhm.
the most interesting part of her story to me was that she had given her kid peanut butter or peanuts, whatever, I think it was peanuts, before, like multiple times. And then just one
Right.
time out of the blue, her kid had a reaction. And
Yep.
I find it, I can understand the fear, as I mean, with all allergies, of course, all food sensitivities, but nuts,
Mhm.
obviously, in particular here, where do you try to withhold the nut from your kid and then see what happens, or do you keep giving it to them,
Right.
but then the one time where their body, I don't know, goes through a change between, X time eating peanut butter and Y time eating peanut butter, it
Yep.
changes. And so I really love those support groups for that
Yes.
sake, just the spread of information. It's really, really nice to see. The nut
And you
allergy group
find
is
a
so
lot of different.
passionate.
Sorry about that. But
There
you
you go.
find a bunch of different stuff on there, that you might not have heard of, like I think that's how I found you, was
Hmm.
somebody else posted, like check this out. And um yeah, it's just that's one place you can go to know that people understand you and where you're
Hmm.
coming from. And it's a good support group and a wealth of information.
Yeah. Now, back to you a little bit. So,
Yeah.
obviously, you you talked about going how your process going out to restaurants and whatnot. What's kind of your snack go-tos? If you ask just a normal person on the street, they're gonna say something like, "Oh, I love trail mix. I love,
Sure.
eating
Yeah.
almonds, right?" But what's yours? What do you like to eat on the go?
Popcorn, beef
There you go.
jerky.
Oh, that's a good one.
I
Yeah.
always tell my wife that, if I could eat nuts, I'd be that trail mix guy, or
Yep.
that, because sunflower seeds, I love sunflower seeds.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why I'm happy to see you come in with the protein bars, whatever kind of bars you want to call them. You just can't find them. And,
Mm-hmm.
to eat on the go is not easy when you can't just grab a bar like everybody else. Um,
100%.
and then otherwise, oranges, fruit, carry with me. That's easy, safe stuff.
Yep.
So,
And I keep bringing up my old podcast host, but my mind keeps
uh,
stimulating.
all
First
good.
episode I did, parents with their college son. Obviously, he was an athlete, baseball player, and he had
Mhm.
to obviously pack in as much protein as possible. And so they'd
Yep.
have to make these kind of awkward kits of cooked meat, eggs, like you said,
Yeah.
seeds. It's just kind of awkward, and uh, it's as I've been learning this process of trying to create this protein bar, it's really
Mhm.
unfortunate how negligent in the industry has been towards people like us. I mean, there are no
Very.
options. There might be one or two, but they're kind of more like allergen free, not specifically
Mhm.
catered to the nut free, which obviously is my goal. Have you said you don't typically eat the stuff with the may contain label, so have you ever had a protein
Right.
bar? Protein bar?
Uh, Protein specifically, I mean, like the 88 Acres brand.
Yep, I've heard of 80
They're
acres. Yeah.
pretty. I mean, as far as I know, they're safe for all the nuts
Hmm.
in the facility. The only thing I find that those other companies lack is they try to cater, like you said, to all the allergens.
Hmm.
And when you do that, you lose the flavor, you lose, a lot of that. It's just like a lot of the nut free, you'll see like a bread or something is nut free, but it's also gluten free. Well,
Yeah.
gluten free bread, we all know it doesn't taste anywhere near as good as a normal glutinous
Yes.
bread.
Yes. Yes.
So no, I mean, there's very little out there as far as protein bars. So I'm excited to see what you do there.
Well, I appreciate that. And one thing I've learned too, I know I'm talking a lot about myself, but you got me going,
It's all good.
is that many people with peanut allergies have pea allergies, legume
Mm,
allergies. Do you have sensitivities there
yep.
as well?
Nope.
Nope.
Beans, peas, legumes, all that's fine.
That's
Uh,
good. Okay. Good.
yep.
Nice. I know that's
Especially
been a
nowadays. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's been a common request I've gotten. Please no pea protein with sometimes multiple exclamation points from many, many different people.
And, I get it. A lot of these bread companies now are starting to put pea protein in their breads and buns at their restaurants. And
Mhm.
if it doesn't affect me personally, but I could only imagine if they start using peanut flour, let's say, in the buns,
Yeah.
like some of those cracker companies have done in the past, just to bypass the allergy laws.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah. Now, all right. So you've managed pretty darn well in your life navigating your nut allergies. You've had your reaction when you were 3 when you first found out. You had when you were, I think, 10 years old, you said with the peanut oil. Um, what kind of advice would you give to people who maybe, let's just say, are just discovered they have a nut allergy? What would you
Mhm.
kind of tell them, just how to navigate life, what foods to opt for? What would you kind of say to them?
Well, first of all, get all the information you can. Just dig deep on the internet, go to the support groups, talk to your allergist,
Hmm.
anything you can do there, and always read the labels.
Hmm.
Don't just go eating something that you have no clue what's in it. And if your body's telling you, I don't know if this is good or not, just don't
Hmm.
even eat it. Because you hear the stories of someone saying, my body's saying I felt like I shouldn't eat this, and their ingredients read okay, and then I had a serious reaction. Here, it's cross-contaminated. So,
Hmm.
but definitely educate yourself as much as possible, and
Hmm.
don't be afraid to ask, anybody to not eat nuts around you.
Yeah.
You got to advocate for yourself and fight for yourself. So, because
Yeah. Yeah.
they're not, if they don't know, they can't stop eating it. So,
Yeah. And I think that's we're seeing a shift as you're saying, but there's still, there's obviously millions of people with nut allergies, but that's still 1, maybe 2% at the most in
right.
the States with a nut allergy. So you have
Yep.
98%, over 300 million people who just truly don't understand. And I think you probably saw that sad story of that recent college graduate who passed away via anaphylaxis, just eating a may contain
Yes.
chocolate bar. I
Yes.
think that,
Yes.
and
Yep.
obviously that's just horrible, and my heart breaks for that family. But that is what could
Yep.
happen if everyone in the community just stopped caring. Um,
Right.
so many more incidents, and that's why the knowledge shared in this community is so important. Because we see that once in a while, and obviously we have reactions within the community, but that's just the worst of the worst. And so, of course, the fear is rising, and we have to
Yeah.
be, we with the nut allergies, we cannot be embarrassed. I think you would agree with that. We're
100%.
seeing it's life and death, and
Yep.
uh, and I think you can obviously can appreciate that. And anyone who's listening who has had an inkling of fear, to advocate for yourself and board that plane first. God dang it, do it,
Yeah.
do it,
Get on there.
get on there. So, well, Curt, I want to make sure that I touched on everything that you were thinking. Is there anything else that you'd like to say? I kind of answered all my questions very well.
No, I mean, I just again appreciate what you're doing, and
Yeah.
we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Well, Curt, I very much appreciate you. And if anyone has any questions for Curt, where can they find you? They can find you in the comment section, at least here. If anyone has
Comments
any
there,
questions.
or yep, Curt Danielson on Instagram or Facebook.
Super cool. And remember, Minneapolis apparently is a safe haven for nut allergies.
Come on up.
Curt will give you the recommendations of where to go and what to eat. All right.
Sure.
Well, Curt, thank you again, and we'll be talking soon.
Thanks for having me. Have a great night.
All right.